So, January of 2023, I got a VCR free from a thrift store. And that was the start of my retro old collection, as I call it. This is going to be a deep dive into my collection and what I intend to do with it. It's not really video games much. I only have a few retro video game stuff, but I'd love to get more. So, like I said, I got it for free at a thrift store. And how I got it for free was, I remember hearing this thing about VCRs where you could get one for maybe 20 bucks at a thrift store. And so I went to my local thrift store, asked if they had any. They brought us into the back room and were like, we don't know if these work or not, so you can take them home, test them, and bring them back and pick which one you'd like. Now, for some of you that might sound weird to bring it home and then bring it back, but it's a non-profit thrift store, and also it's a town, a very small town, so everybody knows everybody. Anyway, I brought all 5 of the VCRs home, tested them. 2 of them worked, 3 of them didn't, but one of the 3 might have actually worked. It might have just been bad luck, because it literally ate one of the tapes that I had. But if I tried it again, it probably wouldn't have ate it, and if it did, then yeah, it would have been defunct. But this is the one I ended up going for. The other one was just a VCR, not a DVD, and the pause button didn't work. And, you also couldn't, no, the video quality was slightly worse too. So this is one I picked. It's Magnavox from 2004, I think. It's on the back. And all the VHS tapes I got with it, I don't have anymore, because I just messed around with them and stuff. Anyway, it stayed just as a VCR for a while, until summer of 2023. I bought an NES top loader off eBay for 160 bucks. Now, I didn't actually get a game for it until a couple days later when I went to a retro game store in my hometown and picked up this. Of course, this is the game you should get with an NES. Now, it did come with the old controllers, and I might order the Dogbone controllers on eBay. Might. I don't know. They work, so I probably won't. Anyway, and then I realized I needed a TV, because that's only RF. I couldn't use it on a modern TV. So I got one for free at a garage sale. But then I realized I needed an entertainment center. Luckily, my stepmom had one laying in the garage, so there we go. And it's meant for the CRT TV, and so I really like that. And so it's nice. Then I slowly collected VHS tapes over a bit. But oh no. Shoot, I forgot a few things to mention. So, I bought an adapter for this one VHS tape I have is Ants. See it? Now, let me show you what is actually on this VHS tape. And I bought an adapter that allowed me to put it on it. Do you recognize it? I put the Mario movie from 2023 onto a VHS tape. And you know why? Because I could. It's not pirating. Because I put it on here via a legal copy of the movie. It was, what was it? Peacock. When it was still on Peacock, I did it on Peacock. And so it was on a legal copy of the movie. Now, as long as I do not distribute this, I am fine, and I am perfectly legal. So you cannot touch me, Universal and or Nintendo. So, that adapter, it worked by converting HDMI to AV. That Roku up there is hooked up to that adapter, and that adapter is hooked up to the VCR, and so that's how I did it. Now, this other VHS tape without a case is Mary Poppins. Psych! It's actually just a bunch of recordings of stuff that I put on there when I figured out how to record onto a VHS tape. Yeah, it was just much easier and cheaper than buying blank VHS tapes, so that's why I did it. Anyway, after getting the adapter, I got some VHS tapes over time. Like, I got these 3 at my local... it was these 4 at a thrift store in my home, in my local thrift store. This I got at a thrift store. This, all at weirdly enough, the exact same thrift store, just different occasions. And my retro game setup stayed this way for a while. But you may notice I haven't mentioned my Super Nintendo yet. That's because I got it only recently. And by recently, I mean like 3 days ago. And how I got it was my cousin asked my dad if I was interested in retro games. Long story short, he gave me a Super Nintendo. So, it didn't come with the second controller. I don't know what happened to it, and I doubt he would know, because it doesn't seem like him to have a console from 14 years before he was even born. So I wonder where he got it, too. And it also doesn't have the RF cord, but it has the AV cord, so it's fine. And I'll probably get wireless controllers for these that actually plug into here. I found some online, and they do look very similar to the Super Nintendo controllers. And I thought about doing the same for my top loader, but they looked nothing like the NES controllers, so I won't. Also forgot to mention, I got an NES zapper for my NES. Like, after I got the game cartridge for this. It's like I got this in late August of 2023. This in like mid-October of 2023. So for 2 months, I couldn't play Duck Hunt. Yeah, I forgot to mention that until now. But anyway, the reason why the RF is a big deal for me is because I like to micromanage my cords as best as possible. And I don't want to have to buy an adapter, or have to constantly plug and unplug my cords for whenever I want to use a certain console. So, I'm not sure how many or how well known this is to the general public, but RF has a very nifty thing. You see, my VCR isn't on, but if I turn on my NES top loader and put it to the port that my VCR runs through, if I turn it on, it'll go through here without this even being on. It could be unplugged and it'll still go through. Now, I'm not going to do that because I was playing Super Mario World, and so I don't want to have to lose that. Ah, screw it. I wasn't even that far anyways. So I gotta unplug some cords real quick. There we go. Had to swap the thing. The NES top loader is on. There we go. But my VCR is not on. Now it is. Now it isn't. Now it is. Now it isn't. But you see where I'm going. And so that's one nice thing about RF, that you can have it run through everything. It's like the cord, it's back here, and I'm not going to be able to show you it. But if I get the RF cord for the Super Nintendo, I can have it run through the NES top loader. Well, actually, it would go up to behind my VCR, into the cord, back to the top loader, then back up to the cord. into the VCR and then back into the TV. It's kind of complex, but that's how it works, and I like it. And how you switch it is this little switch on the back that switches between the console and whatever you have plugged into the other RF node. That little switch here. Now the reason why I had to have a switch there is because TV ports only had one cable or one RF port, and so you had to have everything else run through everything else in order to get it to work. Meaning, if you had cable TV, it'd have to run directly through the TV, but then you got a VCR, it'd have to run through the VCR, then through the TV. And then you got the NES top loader, and that ran through the VCR. But then you got a, trying to think, where was I? The cable would have to go through the NES top loader, then through the VCR, then out to the TV, and then you get another console like a Super Nintendo, and the cable has to go through the Super Nintendo, through the NES top loader, through the VCR, and then through the TV. It sounds annoying, but that was the only way it could work. But that also makes it that you could micromanage your cables a lot better, and not having to constantly plug and unplug stuff, because RF was meant to stay plugged in at all times. It's very delicate, and it really sucks. So yeah, that's my current setup, and that's my plans for the Super Nintendo, but there are more, actually. I want to get the stupid type of screw that I need to get, screwdriver, to take off the bolts on some things, because the battery inside this sucker will eventually need to be replaced sometime, and I'd want to be able to do it myself, and I'd also want to be able to work on my consoles. Like, I want to take off the shell and see if I can get the yellow stuff, or the yellow stain, whatever it is, off it. And the NES top loader, I may want to do a few modifications to it. Now, that's for the consoles I currently have, but I want to get a N64 and a GameCube. Will I? I don't know, I probably won't. I said the same thing about getting a Super Nintendo, so I probably will get both. And if I do, I know they created an adapter for the N64 that allowed you to use RF, and so I'm going to use RF. And then have it run through the Super Nintendo, run through the NES top loader, run through my VCR, and run through the TV. But the GameCube, there was no adapter for that. And so I'm just going to have it run right to the TV. But I'm going to have it run through the same port that I have the Super Nintendo running through right now, because of the fact that this is the port for component cables, and I'll prove it to you. This DVD VCR has component cable support. CVI, that's component cables. And so yeah, it's like the GameCube had component cables, but if I ever get that, I'm either really lucky, really stupid with money, or I won the lottery. Because I'm not paying $200 for cables. Will you? If so, you are pretty stupid then.